by all special district budgets governing the Delaware County for the 2024-25 fiscal year as submitted, and continue the hearing for 14 days. This is the approval for the next, also number 2, approve and use the excess insurance premium funds to establish a irrevocable 115 trust consistent with the recent adopted pension management policy. And 3, review attachment A, establishing a general fund positions, reclassifying 11 general fund positions and adjusting the salary range within one general fund position as presented by the county administrative officer and auditor controller. And 4, accept the recommended children's budget as presented, attachment B. And 5, review and adopt resolution 24030 and 2024-031 to formally separate assistant deputy department heads and branch level deputy directors as submitted under attachment C and D as requested and presented by the county administrative officer, auditor, controller.
Chair,
there we go.
I'm going to jump the gun here a little bit, but I want to make sure that if you're going to open up for public comment, it's going to be my request for number 5 is to table that item until after we receive the comp analysis and the organizational structure report that is due to become in about 6 months. So that's going to be my request. If that's denied, that's fine. We can move forward, but my request will be to table number 5.
Okay, we'll move forward.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, not much of a presentation. Typical of the board report, similar to the one that was presented to the board in June for a recommended budget that was adopted to allow spending authority for the county on July 1, 2024, when the new fiscal year started. Per the government code, before you today is a balanced budget for fiscal year 24-25, totaling $242,916,150, with a general fund budget of $45,355,330. Opening the public hearing is the next step in the annual budget process. The board, budget team, and department management and fiscal staff have worked over the last few months finalizing the fiscal year 24-25 budget, and that is what is presented to you today. As the board knows, this year what was new in the process was the budget workshops. I think that went pretty well overall. We spent 3 days with the general fund departments, listening to the departments, allowing the board to interact with them and ask questions about budgets and operations. There were 3 changes that resulted from the budget workshops that are also included in today's fiscal year 24-25 budget. And in addition to myself, the auditor controller is in attendance today, and we are here to answer any questions you have in regard to the budget report and the items that are presented to you with item number 15 today.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Well, I'm going to have a lot of questions and comments with regard to number 5 if we're not going to table it.
No, we're not tabling.
Okay. Then I'll wait till save my comments till after public comment.
Okay. Public comment period on item number 15.
Norma Williams again, Chapter President, SEIU, DNCEA. I think the only thing that $128,000 for the comp analysis. I'm going to assume that is for the comp and structural analysis. That's a little bit better than $157,000 that you guys spent a couple of years ago. SEIU obviously will be very interested in what the results are, especially as it relates to your plan. But whether it's actually implemented or how that's done, well, let's just say it's an open question. And quite frankly, one of, shall we say, a skeptical open question, because this board over the years does not have a good history when it comes to implementing any past salary studies. The last one was done 24 years ago. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not what comes of this one. Right now, I don't know.
I'm speaking on behalf of deputy directors regarding the resolution before you today that is targeting the deputy directors. So first off, I'd like to say that the deputy directors take no issue with the proposed resolution for the remaining assistant and deputies that would like to remain as a group. and that there are 5 of us, other deputies, that are being removed and separated out. Second is that in the board report before you today, administration is representing that that deputies are at a different level in some case of management, calling them, like 3rd tier based on assistance. I don't know of any examples where there are any assistants that are overseeing deputies. Also in the job descriptions for many of the deputies, you'll see language that is very similar to language for assistants, such as for social services, may act in the director's absence, or language such as acts for the director within delegated authority. So it's just like in a ranking class, it just feels like, hey, we're shoving you down. Thirdly is that, I don't know how much time I have left, I apologize. Thirdly was also that the resolution is a new resolution. If you simply compare paragraph 1 of the existing resolution to the resolution that was before you today, you'll find that there are differences in the language, again reflecting a lot of things about branch and really like pushing down the deputy directors, and it just feels disingenuous. Also, the resolution, it's normal for each management organization or unrepresented group to compose their own resolution, and that was not the case. We were sent the resolution, I think Wednesday last week or something. I was not aware that it was on the agenda, obviously, until Friday. So anyway, I think it's highly irregular that would take place. Also, 2 weeks ago, this board directed administration to negotiate with us using Deborah Muchmore. And as far as I know, Deborah Muchmore was not involved with the making of this resolution that's before you today, nor are any of the other deputies aware of any consultation that took place before this resolution was brought forward. So based on all of those things, we're happy to continue to work under the existing resolution, regardless if you adopt the assistant resolution separately today, until such time as we can create our own resolution.
Thank you.
I ask that the board postpone also the approval of attachment C and D under the number 5 in the agenda item. It was not until Wednesday last week, late in the afternoon, that the assistant director group made it known that they would be removing the deputy directors in the resolution. For myself, I happened to be driving to Sacramento to a workshop, and when I had the time, began to review that resolution. I've had a chance now to review it in its entirety and feel that the proposed resolution doesn't reflect accurately. For one, I noticed that our job classification is listed incorrectly. That'd be one reason to not approve it as it is. The deputy group asked to meet with the current group of assistants as a whole, but we were met with much resistance to do that. And we've asked questions to the group about the fundamental differences between assistants and deputies. Really, the only thing that has been said to us is that we've heard that the assistants do not believe that deputies act on the behalf of a director in their absence. I would disagree with that, and as John Olson mentioned, it's actually in our job descriptions to do that. Personally, I have covered things in the absence of our director in Health and Human Services. I have signed personnel action forms for the entire Department of Health and Human Services. I have covered items at the board meeting on behalf of the entire agency, not just the behavioral health branch. And I've done that routinely. Renelle constantly delegates authority to one of us when she is out of the office and not able to reply and do things in her role as the director. Just within the behavioral health branch, I oversee 58 full-time employees, 7 part-time employees, for a total of 65 employees. In that role, I oversee numerous programs and services under mental health, substance use disorder, prevention services, and our newest housing services unit. I act as if the deputy director, I guess to act as if the deputy director position is somehow lower than an assistant seems a little bit absurd to me. And if the board wishes to have us separate, as Mr. Olson spoke to, we are fine to do that, but we would like to write our own resolution with accurate depiction of what our role and responsibility is. And the one before you today does not accurately depict that.
Thank you.
Hi, Board. I'm Paula Henry. I'm Deputy Director, Admin Fiscal, Department of Health and Human Services. We're just asking today to have input, like all county employees do, on our own resolution. Thank you.
I see once again that the county employees are outnumbering the private citizens when it comes to comment. Did I understand you correctly that at the current budget is going to be $242 million this coming budget cycle?
That's
That's astonishing. I did wade through the 11 hours of public workshop and found that they are a complete waste of taxpayer money and should be suspended. They do not engage the public at all. In fact, the public was rather poorly attended to those meetings, and I failed to see the significance. One thing that I did learn from the 11 hours, I wanted to reach through the screen and strangle some of you over the time that you wasted during the course of the 11 hours. The thing that I did and have been aware of for literally decades is that your priorities are skewed significantly as to what's vital here in the county, that it's pretty clear that our sheriff's department is in a woeful state of disarray, and that you need to stop or you need to take the bags off of your head and address that issue in a relatively significant fashion as quickly as possible, because the county is woefully underserved when it comes to response time for deputies' 911 calls. Recently had an experience next door where my neighbor's wife was accosted by a vagrant waving an axe underneath of her nose, threatening to shoot her and her dog. If she had depended on the sheriff's department, the deputy that responded would have been 59 minutes and 59 seconds too late. I find that also during the course of that experience that she probably could have called the Measure R recently hired building inspector, and he would have likely been able to attend to her difficulties far quicker than the sheriff can. And it's not the sheriff's fault. He cannot possibly do the job that he's been asked to do with the current circumstances that exist in that sheriff station. He's given you a clear message in that budget workshop as to what you must do in order to allow for him to do his job, and that is to significantly raise the wages that he pays his deputies to the point where they can actually live in this county and prosper.
Thank you.
This is simple. If you're a director and a deputy director, no money, no raise. If you are a worker, that's the backbone of this county. If you're a cop, you better pay them, because nobody can live on peanuts. And that's what this county does. Farm out a director of child support services in Trinity County? Come on now. You better pay your people.
Hello, Board.
You rise it up.
Hello, Board. My colleagues, the other deputy directors, have already spoken and really raised all fair and fine comments. I don't want to repeat them, and so have just a few things to add. One, as the newest member of the group and new to the county, I was, to be honest, a little taken aback by the unwillingness to meet as a group. However, we do respect their wishes, that they understand they want to be separated. So going forward, we really hope to achieve, again, some group meetings to facilitate efficient processes for the county. We, and also, as our colleagues have referenced, we would just simply like the opportunity to write our own resolution, feeling that the steps that were taken were not necessarily in good faith for our group. And just an additional comment about the resolution. The reasoning regarding qualifications is a bit convoluted and doesn't really it fails to address the breadth of function that we contribute to the county. Thank you very much for your time, board.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. Supervisor Starkey?
So I received lots of calls yesterday, and I made lots of calls. And I talked to assistant department heads, I talked to deputy directors, trying to kind of understand what this disagreement is about. I'm hearing from both of the parties at play here. Part of this is the board's doing. The Board of Supervisors, the director of DHHS came to us, as has the director of CDD at some point, and said, hey, I need these assistant positions, but I also need another layer to help manage these massive departments. And this board said, we're not going to do that. It's too top heavy. We told Renelle, nope, go back to the drawing board. So she did. She went back to the drawing board and she said, okay, if I can't have myself, an assistant, and the deputy directors, I will just have the deputy directors, meaning that they are in charge when Renelle is not there. Now, the argument that I got, and I really do appreciate the feedback and the pushback that I got from the assistants that I talked to. I'm going to tell you I'm grateful for that. But that they were not responsible for the department as a whole. But that was this board's doing. When we told Heidi, go ahead and don't hire an assistant because we couldn't afford both the assistant and this deputy director in charge of public works, we did that. So if there's corrections that need to be made and we need to do this, then we need to do it right. These people are the number two in charge. And I said this to someone, I expect more from our number twos in charge. I need you guys to get to the table and agree how to do this split civilly. And it sounds as if that didn't happen, and that's disappointing. It sounds like we can get to a resolution, but we need to at least get to the table together to make that happen. So that's why I wanted it pulled. I wanted for them to go back and find out a way to make this a little bit more civil. But if that's not going to happen, I say that we could approve the one resolution, but I think that we hold off on the second resolution, and so the deputy directors have an opportunity to create their own resolution. Even though from what I'm hearing from one of the assistants, it was just exactly the same verbiage that was in the resolution. They just split off the positions, but they still should have had input into their resolution. So that is my request, is that if we approve one, that's fine. We can approve the assistant department heads. I just want the deputy directors to be able to create their own resolution.
Any other comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I looking at this and looking at the two resolutions and thinking about our process of negotiating with our different groups, I'm really confused at how this is progress forward. Creating another group that I cannot, for for the life of me imagine how we could come to, as a board, 2 different agreements for our deputy or assistant groups when it comes to wages, benefits, or anything else that's negotiated. I don't understand why we would want a separate group there. I do agree with some of the comments that were made that whether you're a deputy or assistant, you are asked to step into the role of the director in their absence. So I don't know if it's an argument of semantics. I'm not really sure where this argument or proposal came from. Obviously, to me, it's a little bit flawed. And again, I think to have another bargaining group that would take up the resources of our staff to have to bargain with seems to me not that one group is more or less valuable than the other. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying to have to expend staff time and effort to bargain with another group when there isn't going to be a difference in what the outcomes of those bargainings are, is to me kind of a waste of staff time and work. So Supervisor Starkey didn't form it as a motion, and I think that's maybe why it got a little bit dismissed. But just to make it official, I will make the motion just so we can have a little more time for these groups to possibly come together and come to an amicable solution here. I would make the motion that we continue this until after we have our compensation and structural analysis study completed, and then come back and discuss this at that time.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
so I'd like to have some input from staff on this. I've heard both supervisors' comments up here today, but I know staff has brought this to our attention. It seems like that it's been placed on our agenda with some sense of urgency. Kind of at the last minute, I want to understand some of the history that Supervisor Starkey stated, but more importantly, understand why staff felt that it was important to bring it to us now to move this forward. So if CEO Lopez or Assistant Deputy Director, or not in this case, but Assistant CAO Hooper could help bring us up to speed on this, I think it would be helpful at this time.
Who authored this portion of the board report?
Pardon?
You authored this portion of the board report, correct?
It's yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think in terms of the history of, why we're having the conversation we're having today, I don't disagree with your assessment, Supervisor Starkey. The kind of the management right of a department head is how they want to structure their department. And in the cases of the creation of the deputy director of the public works position, and more recently the creation of the deputy directors in DHHS, these were the products of budget conversations with the budget team that were ultimately approved by the board. It is true that there was a discussion at the board level relating to the top heaviness of having an assistant director in conjunction with these new deputy director positions. And ultimately, it was a board decision and a board construction for those positions to be created, and those departments to be staffed in the way that they are. It's unfortunate because I think in retrospect, the cleaner option would have been from the beginning when these positions were created to have separated them then, and then it wouldn't be on the line having the conversation now, which is uncomfortable for everyone. It isn't a matter, I think, from the assistant's perspective of one position providing a higher degree of service to the county than the other. It really is kind of a logical consideration in terms of the functions of the positions. And from a historical context, if you go back a few years, the assistant group was just that. It was just the assistants. By title, some of the assistant positions are also referred to as deputies. There's the deputy agricultural commissioner, which is the assistant department head. When the new positions were created, it kind of diluted, I guess, the integrity, for lack of a better word, of the composition of the group from the assistants into these other positions, which by job description do not necessarily function as the department head in their absence. It may be a matter of semantics, but what it says is you are delegated this authority by the department head in their absence. That's a pretty key difference, even though it is semantics. So that's a little bit of the history. Fast forwarding a little bit more to closer to the present. When these positions were getting created, it was a pretty simple question that was posed to the existing group. Do we want to continue to function as a single unit, or to have these other positions come in? And it was a pretty robust debate. I think there was a pretty high degree of dissatisfaction from the assistants at the time that the board approved these positions being included in the resolution that they considered to be their resolution, but that is what happened. The conversation at the time kind of concluded with the sentiment of, again, this is a management right from the department head requesting these positions. This was a board decision. There should be respect for that. That isn't to say that there couldn't be an opportunity down the line to have these issues readdressed, and that's where we are today. The urgency, if we want to call it that, on why this should be taken up today, I think from the budget team perspective, is that this is leading into conversations as to what the new resolutions will be composed of. You have hired Ms. Muchmore to represent you with the unrepresented groups. As it stands right now, we have this pending question before not just the assistants and the deputies, but more importantly, the board, that we just want to have resolved. If it's going to be one way or the other, we would just like to move forward with an understanding of what it's going to be. The vote that was taken by the group, the assistants and the deputies, the data is presented in your board report. I don't recall exactly if it's 11 or 12 total members under the resolution. We received 9 votes in that up or down vote, and only 3 voted to have the resolution separated. So from that perspective, it's fairly simple, but I understand there's pretty high emotions on both sides of this. I can tell you that in terms of the development of the resolutions, the intention was to mirror exactly what's in place now in terms of the compensation and the benefits. There are some semantics issues maybe with the titles that are presented. I believe the specific issue may be with the definition of specific deputy directors over branches. That I think is kind of implicit with the positions under their job descriptions, but I know there's a little bit of issue with how that's presented in the resolution. The other thing that was pointed out in the board report is that we did request authorization for human resources to administratively correct any of those sort of minor issues that should be addressed in terms of the final product. But again, the intention was for the benefits and the compensation to be exactly as it is now, so that going into those conversations with your negotiator, that can be fairly negotiated between the board and the groups. So that's the best way I could present it. I'm certainly available for any questions.
I have some follow-up questions, if I could, Chair.
Please.
So you're saying that the board made that decision to place it in that bargaining unit, and I just want to point out that on August 8th, 2023, the board report said that the assistant/deputy department head group reviewed the classification descriptions and have no concerns at this time. So we made our decision based on the fact we were told we had buy-in from that bargaining group. That's number one. Number two, the robust debate whether or not deputy directors should be in this agreement, that happened prior to the 4 deputy directors from DHHS. My understanding is those 4 deputy directors from DHHS have yet been able to sit down and have a discussion. The robust discussion that you talk of sounds like it happened prior to them being onloaded or onboarded. And then third, the 3-2 vote. There is 11 assistants. There is 5 deputy directors. That is unfair to say that they're going to have this up for a vote on what needs to happen. The better idea would have been to have a discussion where everybody sat around the table. If you were not able to reach a consensus, then bring that to the board for us to be able to make a decision. To have that vote was completely unfair based on the amount of people that were on one side of the issue and the other.
My name is Sherrick Cron. I'm the Assistant Auditor Controller. I just want to clarify on that was not brought forward to our group when these deputy directors positions were created.
And I appreciate that, Sherrick, and I'm glad you said it. But when it shows up in a board report that it was,
Completely understood.
that is something that this board makes a decision based on something that was not true.
Absolutely. I completely understand that. And that is why that happened a long time ago. We have talked since then. This sense of urgency is more of just, I would consider it more of the end of where the assistant stood. The board created these positions. I have no opinion or argument about how anybody wants to structure their department, how they want it managed, or anything else like that. I do feel that there are some key differences between what a deputy director's responsibilities are and what an assistant department head's responsibilities are. I think even Ronell, in presenting her initial structure of saying, I want a department head, an assistant department head, and then you guys negotiating saying that, no, we just need to eliminate the assistant, gives clarity to that there is a clear level of difference. I'm not pushing them down. I don't feel like I've looked at both resolutions. I don't feel like one resolution gives the assistants everything and gives the deputy directors nothing. As a matter of fact, I feel like the best way to look at it, instead of taking this negative context of we're not breaking up, we're not splitting, nobody's calling anybody names, it's doing what should have been done in the first place. It's just righting that wrong. That we want equal starting points, especially since you, as the board, had the wisdom of hiring somebody to negotiate specifically with these unrepresented groups. Because I'm the longest standing assistant, and I can tell you in the 13 years I've been here, we have not had a seat at the table and changed our resolution in negotiating anything since I've been here. So hiring somebody and giving them the ability to do that, I love the idea. But what I don't love is the dilution of our group and it being forced into our group when we were not given a choice. And I feel like presenting these two resolutions, I don't know the specific history of each group doing their, individual resolutions. But I do know that these four positions were put in our group. Since the beginning of that happening, our group was not happy with that just happening. I feel that we have not just in name, but we have codified by code responsibilities that deputy directors don't share. A delegation of authority is not the same of if the department head cannot fulfill the duties, even if the department head is not in the country or unavailable, I must fulfill those duties. That's the difference. I just want that recognized. And I feel like these two resolutions, the only thing they do, they are equal starting points for these two groups. I don't find it a waste of money. If you guys felt it was a waste of money, like Supervisor Short said, and having to negotiate with another group, I don't know why we created another group. I mean, if we're already too top heavy and you guys are too busy to negotiate with another group, then I don't know why we did it in the first place. But I don't think forcing them into our group, which we've been the ones that have sat by and been the continuity to the running of this government. How many times have I stood before you guys and asked you for anything? I just want an equal starting point. This wasn't a matter of not wanting to sit around the table. This wasn't a matter of being uncivilized like Supervisor Starkey was indicating. None of that. It's just giving us an equal starting point each group, and that is all that we were wanting. I know you said you expected more from the number twos, but I expected more from that with us sitting back and accepting these responsibilities of just being told what's going to be happening next. We've always been a bigger part of that management picture. I feel like our department heads have always been a bigger part of including us in that management picture. I would just ask for the same from you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question?
Yes. I was just wondering, Randy or Sherrick, either one, if you were to be the one sitting at the table at the bargaining table, is there something that makes you think that the separation of these groups, that one group would get a different conversation with the bargaining or the budget team or the bargaining group than the other?
At this point, it's way too preliminary to say. With this fundamental question has really been the focus in our conversations internally. We don't even know how to have a constructive conversation on what future benefits could look like without having this issue resolved. So no, to answer your question.
I guess that's where I'm just confused or wondering why the need for the split. I mean, even arguing, completely accepting what you just said, Sherrick, that delegation of responsibility versus that responsibility is set. I completely understand that. Could totally agree with it, but I don't understand why the separation into two different bargaining groups is necessary. You guys are both second in charge from my viewpoint, so it seems to me that there would be no place where you would sit at the table and in bargaining, and the board would say, we think that assistants should get 2% and deputies should get 1%. I can't see that happening. So I'm just kind of confused as to why.
Let me just interject real quick, Supervisor. It would be highly inappropriate to speculate on what the future benefits of a negotiation would be without those conversations having first have happened. Number one. Number two, we see this as a cleanup. I think Sherrick said it extremely well. This is an overdue cleanup of a wrong that now can be righted if the board is inclined to do that.
I guess I'm just struggling to see what the wrong is.
That's fair.
That's all. I'm just trying to figure it out myself.
My understanding of where we're sitting right today is that we have two groups. Each one has different responsibilities. And we are separating those out, and they're both starting at identical spots. Both of them have the same identical resolution. There's not one difference. However, the board has our representative, which will go forward with these non-represented units and have these types of discussions. They will meet with each individual representative now as we split these out, and then those are the discussions that will be had and brought back to the board, whether it's changing verbiage on particular positions within and definitions of job titles and responsibilities within a resolution, or whether that is, redefining what wages, benefits, and process they're going to have. That Ms. Muchmore has been appointed by us to represent them, to have those discussions with these non-represented groups. And it seems to make more sense at this point in time to separate these two because they do have two distinctive duty responsibilities. They're both starting at the same identical spot. We have not changed or taken away any of their rights that they had prior to coming to this position. However, in discussions going forward with much more and those distinctive two groups on changes that they want to see within their resolutions are what we are looking towards and hoping for. And so having those discussions go separated and actually having those discussions with each representative group, I think is the proper step for us to go at this point in time, expecting that we're going to see, open discussions and changes and recommendations coming back to the board. This is not anything that is set in stone. However, it is something that we should be engaged in at this point in time and not waiting and delaying till as we look forward and go forward, we have these two distinctive groups. And that's my understanding of where we're sitting today. Thank you.
So, Chair, I'd like to just ask a question. If the director of DHHS or the director of CDD are out of town or incapacitated, who's in charge? The answer is if nobody is in charge, right? We don't have anybody to delegate those duties to, then it sounds to me that this board needs to ask staff to bring back proposals to hire assistants for both the DHHS and CDD. Those are just comments. I would like to second Supervisor Short's motion to table this matter.
We have a motion and a second. Please pull the vote.
Is this just for number 5, or are we going to take
Just
1
number
through
5.
4 separate? Okay, thank you.
I apologize. What are we putting the vote for?
Number 5, the postponing or
Thank you.
removal of number 5.
All right. Supervisor Howard.
No.
Supervisor Borges.
No.
Supervisor Starkey.
Yes.
Supervisor Short.
Yes.
Chair Wilson.
No. Entertain a motion?
Sorry, on everything in 15, or are we going
Yes.
to take things individually at this time?
All together, I would assume.
If we're going to go on to the rest of it, I had a question about the sheriff's department and the ad hoc report. We touched on this at the workshops. The sheriff brought forward a proposal to the ad hoc committee about restructuring of his department. I was kind of wondering if or why the board wasn't presented with that, or if we could discuss that proposal that he brought forward.
So I was part of the ad hoc with Chair Wilson, and we met once where it was very clear that we weren't going to get anywhere. And so I think that we just stopped having those meetings at that point. Mr. Lopez and Mr. Shad was there along with Chair Wilson, and the sheriff was trying to get those proposals forward, and it just appeared at that time that we were not going to move forward. So that's why nothing was brought forward, and we've not met since.
Was there a reason why it wasn't going to move forward, or, I mean?
It would have, Chair Wilson would have to speak to that. I was in favor of it.
As far as my understanding and my discussions that I've had numerous with both county and with the sheriff, is that the board in its methodology has taken steps, both in our contracts as well as outside of those steps, in order to adjust and make some changes to the sheriff's ability to hire. All the recommendations that the sheriff has made are still and requested are still on we are aware of where and what he is requesting, and that those are going to be looked at as we go forward, especially once we get the comp study back in. These are not things that have gone away. They are still in consideration, and they are still on our plate as we look at ways that we are going to be able to meet the requirements that both the sheriff wants as well as the board in our direction towards addressing the sheriff's office and hiring and retention. So all of the things that we had discussions in those meetings is still there. They're still on the table. Many of them have already been addressed, but those other steps that we're taking, a lot of that is going to be re-looked at, especially in light of the comp study that is coming up.
And sheriff's in agreement with waiting for that, or, I mean, I'm just wondering why the board can't be presented with what his proposal was.
As far as my discussions with the sheriff, yes, he's been in favor of what we have and still looking at what he has proposed as far as, whether it's eliminating positions and adding those salaries, et cetera. Those have been ongoing discussions that we've had, and the timing is the only difference between whether we bring these things at this point or later. But most of that is discussions that we've had is we don't want to make changes, even those that he has on his ideas for changes, without having the additional information that we will get with the comp study. And so it's not a matter of not doing it, it's a matter of doing it when we have the information that we have that is hopefully going to give us a better picture of whether these changes and how much of these changes need to be made going forward.
Yeah, I agree that the comp study is going to paint us a picture, but also can't deny that comp study or not, the sheriff's office is suffering from lack of staff, and action needs to be taken. I've heard about the proposal. It seems like very doable to me. I just kind of am wondering why the board couldn't look at it and have that discussion. And as support the sheriff and what he was doing. He stepped up here. I'd like to, obviously, he's got some words to say, so I'd like to give him that opportunity as well.
Well, what I wanted to say is that the proposals that I had throughout the ad hoc committee, those conversations were presented in different forms to the budget team and so forth. If you want to have conversations about those, I would feel a lot more comfortable if the board directed me to bring it so that I don't get myself into a negotiations issue or something like that. But to back up what you're saying, we're absolutely in dire straits. I've explained that time and time again. And if there is something that we can do quickly, obviously, as much as I have presented in the past, we've tried. But I've also said there is a lot of reasons why some of it we may or may not be able to do. And so there is a lot of options there, and a comp study is going to take 5 months. It'll be really interesting to see that comp study and whether the board decides to wait for that. I think immediate action is great right now. Anything that we can do will help. And if we decide to wait until that comp study's in, my biggest push would be to act immediately. 5 months is 5 months down the road. So if we're going to wait until then I can't wait another 6 months to look at a comp study and continue kicking that can down the road because the staffing levels are what they are. So hopefully that clarifies without opening up that discussion. If you all want to see it, then that's something that we can discuss. But I would ask that be brought up to me from you guys.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Mr. Chairman, I feel like we're kind of walking back down the path of what took place when I was on vacation with the roads department, and I don't want to go there. To me, it's a very slippery slope. To go there at this time, I think we've gotten to a point in our budget hearing processes. We've gotten to a point with our budget team with what we've got presented. That's going to provide a stopgap essentially to where we could get to in 5 or 6 months that allows the sheriff, our budget team, and the board to act in a responsible manner with very little dollars in our current general fund. That may or may not help based on that compensation study, the sheriff and the needs that he needs to meet to put feet on the ground on our streets. So I heard from Chair Wilson through those committee processes that the sheriff did support what we currently have in front of us. So I'd like to stick with that if possible.
Supervisor Howard, I couldn't disagree more. I didn't sound like the sheriff was agreeing with that process at all. I don't think kicking the can down the road farther than we have is prudent. I've seen the human trafficking and the drug dealing that's going on at the end of Waldo. I know we all see the blight that's around our community and the crime that's going on. The sheriff needs help, and we have told the sheriff that we are here behind him and here to support him. What the proposal that I saw or understand is relatively budget neutral from what I understand. I think that this board should have the opportunity to review that. And I don't know if I don't want to step on any toes or do anything improper either. As the sheriff said, I don't know if the right way to request that this come forward is through a budget hearing or at formally asking the sheriff to bring it forward. But if whatever the right process is, I would like to make that request.
One thing I do want to say is that you're absolutely right. We don't have deputies on the street. And if we push the pay issues that we have down the road 5-6 months, and it takes me another year to hire, the community continues to suffer. And that is the problem that I have, because I have so many people within every one of your district calling me, mad at me because we don't have deputies. And I think really there's a procedure to it. There's an approach to it. There's a way to go about these things. But in fairness, I put clear back 2 years ago, this was in my strategic plan to everyone. So this should not be a surprise. But in a way to, how do we go about it procedurally and correctly without violating some sort of laws and rules? And if we're putting the money into a comp study, is that outcome, how quick are you guys wanting to react to that comp study? I guess that's where I'm at, because I'm pushing as hard as I can. I'm hiring as many people as I can to keep locals, and I've already got a few looking at different jobs in different areas for high pay. They're very happy here, but at what point do we look at our communities and the problems that we have out there and the urgency that it presents? So I appreciate you guys even discussing it. I think it's good to have those conversations, not hurting anything. Obviously, opinions vary. That's perfectly fine. But when we talk about the citizens and the people that don't have what they need, that's what's hurting us the most in our community. And I do think that morale is a big one that keeps and retains people, but pay is a huge one as well. And so we've got the morale piece. We're doing excellent. We're doing so many good things, but that pay piece is not any different than any other sheriff's office in the state of California right now. The fight is real and it's urgent. And there's a lot of sheriffs doing the same thing that I am, trying every possible way to give approaches to bring that pay up. And they're successful with that.
Sheriff, is it changing outcomes? That's what we need to know. Is it changing the outcomes when you see a pay increase? Is it bringing warm bodies to do what you need to do? When those sheriffs are taking action, that's really where the board needs to hear from you. Those anecdotal stories, I don't care what it is, if it's a piece of paper with solid data, because those promises have been made in the past. And this board has reacted quite significantly with the sheriff's department to increase wages year after year after year. And we have not gotten there yet to where you're able to fill those positions with what we've increased. So there's this promise that, again, if we do this and increase wages for maybe a third or fourth year in a row, is it going to create positions, feet on the street, per se? My understanding is the last time we did this, we were now more comparable than in our entire region. The Del Norte County Sheriff's Department had the highest wages when you looked at tribal positions, Brookings, all those pieces. If that's not factual, then that's what I need to know from you.
And that makes perfect sense, because you want to see it on paper and you want to see something in front of you that shows how far down we are. And there's all kinds of different ways that I came up with my different variations of this, talking to other sheriffs. One sheriff's office eliminated some positions, rose some pay up. They're nearly full staff now. There's the things that are working, but it's moving so quickly that everyone's having a problem with it. And I would say, I don't know where that's coming from, that this has been the highest paid sheriff's office in the region or law enforcement organization, but that is not factual. For example, I've tried to pick up a local law enforcement officer very recently that's been tenured. I can't do it. I cannot match that pay. So in my opinion, we still have a problem. We need to look at it, and the retention part comes in also. So, we can grab people, we can keep them 3 or 4 years, but are we going to retain them? Are they going to buy a house here? And what do we look at? Do we look at the reduction of staffing to increase that salary to retain these people? Because we're now, what we have to look at is, how do we look at these deputies? Do we look at them as career oriented, or do we look at them as they're going to be here 5 years and go? So that's kind of where I'm coming from. But on paper, studies, there was a study in 2019 that I didn't know about. There was a study back in 1998. There's different studies, and the board you can see the money where the board has really tried hard. It's obvious that they've tried hard. But now we're in a situation, in my opinion, where we almost have to stretch to keep up with what's going on. So it's nobody's fault. It's just, holy smokes, the economy's a mess, a lot of problems. But what I'm dealing with is at Emergency Services Division. And when emergencies are happening, I can't get people there. Or a jail staff, where I'm having to reduce my inmate population because I don't have enough staff, or I can't get meals served or meds served, or court mandates. You know, I don't have any deputies to work those courts, those kind of things. And it's not uncommon. It's not just Del Norte County. It's other sheriff's departments throughout the state that are having to really step up and really push to make these adjustments. Nobody likes it. It's just the way it is. And so however you want to approach that is entirely up to you guys. You control that salary. And so that's why I brought those up, because I feel there's ways that I can contribute to help. You know, we're not rich. So anyhow, thank you guys.
So I just have a question before you go. So that move we did probably a few months back, where allowed you to hire everybody at a step C. And I think the new hiring rate was just shy of $30 an hour for a new deputy, which put us, I believe, quite a bit above everyone locally. Did that not make a difference in hiring anybody?
Hiring at Step C was a tool. Like I mentioned, it's great. But if I hire someone that just got out of the police academy at a Step C, somebody that has the amount of time on to make the Step C that I currently have, now that's where you start your morale problems. And so, I can't do that. How do I hire somebody right out of the academy at a Step C when I have Bs and new Cs in my department already that have earned that? So it is a tool. If someone has some experience, I can hire them at a C. But it's just that little tool. But otherwise, and starting wages, I would recommend checking that starting wage. It's not $30.
It wasn't the $29.90 or something?
Starting.
And is there, how many are down there? I mean, is it one person that's down below the Step C? So is that eliminating from hiring multiple new deputies at the Step C? Or like, what's the holdup there? Is there just one person hanging out below?
So
bump them up?
Yeah, no, I think what you're talking about is, can we just bump everyone up to a Step C?
How many are in that everyone category for new deputies?
I don't remember. We looked at it. I think there was about 16 that we needed to bump up to make everyone even. That would be a huge help. There's a little bit of a cost to it. I think the cost was somewhere, and don't quote me, I think it was around $40,000 or something like that. But, that's an option too, to look at that. There's some issues with everything that you try to do, and you have to be careful when you do that. And even talking about it openly in public can create a problem. So that's why I digress a little bit.
Yeah.
But
well, I would like to say, I would welcome the sheriff to in 14 days, we're going to have this final budget back in front of us. I'd welcome the sheriff to bring back his proposal to us for your request of action and review on, because it is one of those areas that the board does have direction and control over. We have direction and control over your budget. We have direction and control over the amount of personnel and where that personnel is allocated. And so, I would see that, bringing your personal request back to the board at that time would be more than welcome.
Just procedurally, I think that you have to bring it to the budget team before the 14 days. We're in the hearing open now. So I believe you need to propose that to the budget team, and so they could then bring it before the board before the final budget is drafted. Is that correct?
During the open hearing, the board can provide direction to a director of a department. And we're more than happy to work with the sheriff on that. I would like to touch on the ad hoc committee. We haven't met for 6 months, which is why this proposal wasn't brought forward. At that time, we all agreed, who were in the ad hoc committee, to put things at status quo, which is why it wasn't brought forward to the whole board. Usually an ad hoc committee will bring a recommendation to the board. The ad hoc committee did not do that. So this is kind of outside of that process. I wasn't aware that we were actually still in the middle of discussing these things. We've discussed other things with the sheriff, which you'll see there are several changes to his staffing on the recommended budget, which were discussed during the budget process. But yeah, I'm open to conversations with them again. And if the ad hoc committee is still active, so if that's something that the board would like to also pick back up and start meeting again and having some of these conversations, that's fine as well. When we're talking about wages, we're talking about a represented bargaining group, Sheriff's Employees Association. So please keep that in mind.
So next step is 14 days from today? We'll-
I would
What's-
recommend.
What's procedurally I mean, I realize we have to be careful because it's a bargaining group, so. what's the
He
next
can
step?
bring forward a plan if he wants, but we cannot change wages directly at a board meeting or through the budget.
No, it would just be directing, if he comes forward with a plan in 2 weeks, we could approve that to be given to staff to work on.
Outstanding. Thank you for your consideration. Appreciate it. Thank you, Sheriff.
It's up to you, Sheriff, then?
I'll get a plan together and submit it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We are left with a motion, or can I entertain a motion on 15?
There's no motion yet, but I will make a motion at this time to, as you stated, into the record with item number 15 to pass all those. I'll say items 1 through 5.
We have a motion and a second. Please pull a vote.
Just a correction, it's 1 through 4.
It's all.
1 through 5. Yeah, with a down vote, but we haven't voted for
We
those two
voted no to
resolutions.
remove it from these items.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So 1 through 5.
Chair?
Yes, public comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say public comment.
Any public comment on these? Seeing none, go forward. Hold the vote.
Supervisor Starkey,
I'm just confused because I don't want to vote yes on number 5. So I guess I'm a no.
Supervisor Borges,
Yes.
Supervisor Short,
Yeah, I kind of share that, but being as we were voted down already, I'll vote yes for the others.
so is it a year or nay?
I'll vote yes, to support the other, yes.
Supervisor Howard,
Yes.
Chair Wilson.
Yes. And at that point, we'll bring back number 12 from the consent agenda.
I pulled number 12 because